What's up, y'all? You're listening to the Extra Point College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Carnes, joined as always by my co-host, Daniel Hammock. Daniel, another great day of football yesterday. We are down to 4 undefeated teams. So we started the day with 6. We now go down to 4. And we'll talk about at the end playoff rankings and if the 4 undefeated teams should be in the top 4. Maybe not. But Daniel, I think we should start with a top 3 team losing, and it was Michigan State at the hands of Purdue. We talked before the show. I felt like a lot of people built up this whole Purdue versus top 5 teams, and I'm like, it's too obvious of an upset. It's not going to happen again, and Purdue whooped them.
Yeah, it's almost a regression to the mean. A lot of these undefeateds. It's not that they were bad teams. They were good teams capitalizing on the schedule that they had to that point. So Michigan State, this game against Purdue, is one of these where, certain people could kind of, sound the siren and see it coming. Purdue's definitely one of these teams that I think they're well coached. They've got some playmakers, and if you catch them on the right day, they can put you down just like they did to Iowa. They kind of were our eye opener for Iowa by taking them down and just kind of just beating them, straight up. They didn't have to get fancy with it. They were just a better team, and that's what they were on Saturday against Michigan State. It was kind of eye-opening for Michigan State in that, they were getting some of these hints of top 4, playoff, all this kind of stuff. And, obviously so impressed by, this team under year 2 of Mel Tucker. But, Purdue just kind of lined up and beat them. We talked about it with David Bell having, was it over 200 yards receiving on 11 catches? So just stupid yards. Just a great performance by him. Aiden O'Connell, I believe, had 530 yards passing. Something crazy where they're able to just do what they wanted to through the air. They really didn't need to run the ball for what they wanted to get accomplished. They just had a great offensive day.
Purdue had 58 rushing yards and 536 passing yards.
That's all they needed. 58 was plenty.
I felt like Michigan State's defense had been built up a little bit, and Purdue had no 3 and outs. They scored on every drive at 3, and they scored on their last 5 consecutive drives, and 3 of them were field goals. But here's where they kicked the field goal, Daniel. They kicked the field goal on the Michigan State 12, 7, 4 were field goals. They kicked field goals on the 12, 7, 6, and 5 yard line. So, this could have been a lot worse score-wise. So, look, I feel like we've learned one thing in college football this year. Every team has flaws. There's no team that is a flawless team. And Michigan State's flaws got exposed. Their secondary got burned, a team that had an ultra-talented receiver, a QB that can find spots, an offense that, hey, when Jeff Fromm's playing top 5 teams, that offense, he calls a dang good offense against these teams. It's fun to watch. A lot of fun wrinkles, a lot of great scheme. So huge win for Purdue. And spoiler alert, I had them ranked last week. I have them ranked this week, and just in my ranking. This is not our XPR. I'm pulling it up now. I ranked them, let's see, 17th. So almost put him 16th. In fact, I might put him 16th. I'm looking at who I have them ranked behind. But this is a good team. And if you look at their best wins, they have wins against Michigan State and, Iowa. Who's the other? Iowa. I was like, who's the other Big Ten team to beat?
Right.
Iowa. So better than most wins in the
Big Ten West,
top 10. In the Big Ten West as well, even the top 10. You're looking at a team like Cincinnati. Purdue has better wins than Cincinnati does. So they also have 3 losses. So huge win for Purdue. Michigan State, everything's still ahead of them. Again, you still get to play Ohio State. You win that game, you get the tiebreaker. You're going to the Big Ten championship. So everything's still ahead of them for Michigan State. I didn't drop them a ton of my rankings, but we'll see what happens Tuesday night when the playoff rankings come out. The other undefeated team that lost, Daniel, Wake Forest. And we talked about it, man. they blew a lead in the fourth quarter against North Carolina in a non-conference game. So Wake Forest, even though they lose, is still undefeated in the ACC, can still win every ACC game. Just hilarious. Points spread was 2.5. Carolina was favored for most of the game. It did not look like they were the better team. And then once again, this happened last year. Wake Forest blows a lead. Carolina wins 58-55. I mean, I feel like this was not surprising to you and me. Like, Wake Forest was not a legitimate top 10 team.
Yeah, this is a team that's very good team, very well coached team, caught lightning in a bottle, and yeah, they've definitely made the most of a down year in the ACC Atlantic. Um, they might have some more losses coming on this schedule, but as far as this game, honestly, I mean, we both picked it different ways. I took Wake Forest to continue their winning streak. You picked North Carolina to cover the 2.5 point spread. And you were kind of, you're bullish on, hey, North Carolina is going to kind of correct these things. Well, towards the end of that game, the fourth quarter, I guess you mentioned that 18-point lead. I'm sitting thinking, Wake Forest has done it. Like they've proved me right. They've done what they needed to do, and it ultimately did not end up being enough. The rushing attack for North Carolina proved to be too much. Ty Chandler just had a great day running the ball. Had some explosive runs. So I think that's going to be kind of the key in keeping Wake Forest from really their ultimate goal, which, I mean, for every team would be to make the playoff and potentially, win it. Wake Forest needed to be undefeated based on perception and schedule and conference situation. ACC is down this year. An undefeated ACC champion has a chance, even if it is Wake Forest, but a one loss, even if it's an out of conference loss, stops that from happening. So that does kind of wipe them away from that discussion, which I know we'll get to a little bit later. But
do you think it's for sure though? Is the ACC out of the playoff?
Yeah, there's not there's not one team that could, beat. I mean, the way this Miami team has been playing has been, but no one team is void of blemishes as far as whether it be a loss or flaws that's kept them from winning some games that they should have earlier on this season. So
I think you bring up a great point, which I know we're going to talk about this later, but we need to let the season play out. You can get as mad as you want to about the rankings right now. Like, you can get as mad as you want to about the Tuesday night show, everyone talking about it, Cincinnati being left out of the top 4, all this other stuff. Let's just let the season play out. Like, you might think Ohio State's better than Oregon right now. Well, they have the same record, and Oregon beat them head to head. So Oregon's going to be ahead until they lose again. Like, let's let the season play out. I think a lot of this stuff is going to solve itself. You might say it's unfair for a one-loss ACC champion to be for sure out, like especially at this point. Wake's going to lose again, in my opinion. So I don't think we're going to have to worry about it. I think this exposed that, hey, Wake's not going to go undefeated or go with one loss. So, and you were hitting at that with Miami being, picking up some steam and getting good. So I think it's going to work itself out. I think all the playoff stuff's going to work itself out. So let's just wait. We still got a lot of good football. Let's let it play itself out. So 2 undefeated teams go down, but Daniel, the only ranked matchup of the day was in College Station, Texas. And my dream of 10-2 Auburn has died because Auburn goes down 20-3, where the only touchdowns of the game were defensive touchdowns.
it was just one touchdown, right? It was just one defensive touchdown. Everything else was field goals and a safety.
That's what I was seeing 14, and I was like, it was defensive touchdowns. The safety, I completely forgot about that. Yes. So one defensive touchdown the whole game. This is Georgia Clemson part 2.
Yeah, it was definitely something to keep. It was interesting because Texas A&M is the best defensive line that A&M has, or that Auburn has played since Georgia. They kind of did something similar to them. Auburn, I think, still played a great game defensively. Obviously, you're talking about a game where they're not giving up explosive plays or touchdowns or anything like that. Obviously, that play by Bo Nix where the unforced error basically fumbles the ball and then it's picked up and ran back for a touchdown. you call that the difference in the game, but even if that touchdown isn't scored, A&M does do the ball control thing, does kick the field goals, and is the better team. They're not just far and away the better team, which, I think is indicative of the score. It was 20-3, and it wasn't like a, 40-3 or 40-10 or something like that. So I think that that's got to be something to keep in mind, that Texas A&M couldn't run away and hide from Auburn, but they got to a certain part of the game and they're like, let's just take the air out of the ball and do what we need to do to win this game. We know that our defense is going to be fine, so they're not going to score more than another touchdown on us maybe, and so that's it. Kind of, you could see they flipped that switch. They kind of felt comfortable at a certain point.
It's situational football, like you mentioned. Like I think after the second drive, A&M realized like Auburn's not going to score much, and that was the field goal they got, or the field goal they missed that one. No, they got the first one early. Anyway, like they attempted 2 field goals, but like it took them 14 plays, 7 minutes off the clock to go 60 yards, and then a field goal attempt. So at that point, it's like, oh yeah, you're not going to score much. So let's just take the air of the ball. Let's be conservative. We know we can win this game. But to that point, I think Auburn's defense played well. I don't walk away thinking they're for sure going to lose to Alabama, though, which we're going to get to. So I think A&M just had a really good defensive game. And, hey, everything's still on the table for A&M. You know who the biggest Auburn fans are going to be the rest of the season? Texas A&M. Because if Auburn beats Alabama in the Iron Bowl, Texas A&M is going to Atlanta. So that'd be huge for the Aggies. Daniel, we had another SEC game on late. That was a fun one. Tennessee and Kentucky. This is on our picks. The line ended at a pick 'em. Tennessee wins by 3, 45-42. This is a fun game.
Yeah, this one, aside from having to listen to the broadcast, which had its own issues, whether you want to talk about the continuously talking about the time of possession disparity or just Beth Moen's voice in general, I can't deal with either one. But the game was the one that I just wanted to have on. It was exciting on both sides of the ball as far as scoring. I feel like every time I flipped it on, Tennessee was scoring a long touchdown, and it was just awesome to watch. As far as, if you like watching points scored, it was just a really good game. It just seemed like very potent offenses on both sides. Really, the analytics point to obviously Tennessee being way more explosive, Kentucky kind of having a big play here, big play there, keeping them in the game. And then it kind of came to a head when Alontae Taylor picked one off and ran it back to the house for Tennessee, giving them a 10-point lead at the time. Kentucky then answers with a touchdown to draw it within 3. But what a great game to have on just at night. Just a really evenly matched game overall. Just, you felt like these are kind of two teams that are really on the same, wavelength. They're on the same stratosphere of pecking order, I guess. If you're power rating teams in the SEC or just in the nation, they're very similar as far as that goes. And interesting because there was times when I was watching this game, me and you went back and forth as far as our picks. We both ended up picking Tennessee since it was a straight pick 'em. But I had a lot throughout the week that I just really felt like Kentucky, because their coaching and their program standard and all that. And so when Kentucky would get up on them or when they would score, I just remember thinking, what did I just blow this pick? Like thinking too much about it. And then I'd see Tennessee go and score really quick. And I'd say, I picked the right team. Whether or not they win, it's up to them. But I picked the right team. But it's just weird. You got a first-year head coach with a bunch of depleted roster versus an established head coach with, full squad of developed talent. And this is what you get. That's the result. So it was just a fun matchup.
It was fun. So Tennessee has Georgia next, Daniel. Is this, I told you this. There's been a lot of praise of this Georgia defense. I think this will be the best offense that Georgia plays, both in like skill, scheme, and motivation. I think Florida maybe especially second half. Like, what was it over already? As far as like, had they given up and evidence of? We haven't even talked about that game.
We'll get there.
Florida, South Carolina. Yeah. So, is this the most motivated, best scheme, high-powered offense Georgia's going to face so far this season? I definitely think so.
I think, and you can also throw in quarterback play. I think Hendon Hooker, with the way he plays, you've seen other, you've seen other running quarterbacks against Georgia. You've seen other passing quarterbacks. I think he's the best version that does both, where he throws an accurate ball. I think that they played against Anthony Richardson, who I think his ceiling's still pretty high for Florida.
I mean,
He
first
just
start against this defense.
first start against this team is just not fair. He has an elite athletic profile in general, but he's still not quite there with the passing game. Hendon Hooker is a seasoned starter at this point with how he's played, in the ACC with Virginia Tech, and then so far this year in this Josh Heupel offense. But watching him throw the ball, I mean, I feel confident in the fact that he can deliver the ball accurately, on time, in rhythm in this offense. He can run the offense they want to, and he's quick, and as far as getting out of the pocket and scrambling for yards, or scrambling to throw, or if they need to do a designed run. I think that he kind of it's perfect for the Heupel offense, is he can do all the plays that they want to do in this offense.
This offense is so fun to watch. I just want to read you their. There's a lot of talk on the broadcast about time of possession, and it made me want to throw up because time of possession is not a great way to measure a team's success. We have a great episode coming up with Parker of at Stats War on Twitter. He has a great advanced stats website. He puts out advanced stats previews that we reference when we pick games. We have a great episode with him that we actually recorded tonight, coming up soon when we post that. But we talked about how time possession doesn't tell the full story and how advanced stats are helping us, get a better grip on what's actually happening in football. But Kentucky dominated time possession. If you look at total time possession for the game, let's see, Kentucky, 46 minutes they had the ball. 46 minutes they had the ball. I just want to read you Tennessee's scoring drives, how long they took time possession wise. All right, you ready? 11 seconds, 26 seconds, 2 minutes and 36 seconds. Whew, that was a long time to score. Because here we go again, 16 seconds, 37 seconds, 44 seconds. Daniel, I don't know if I said that clear enough. Every touchdown drive minus one was less than 1 minute. I mean, this offense is just fun. And this is why this was I questioned the hire with Josh Heupel. I didn't think he was going to make it out of his first contract. But one thing we did say was he's going to put butts in the seats because they're going to score points, which is what they weren't doing the last few years under Jeremy Pruitt. And my goodness, they're scoring some points, Daniel, and they're a lot better than I thought they would be. A lot better than I thought they would be.
Yeah, now that I look back and kind of see the stars align with the transfer quarterbacks and stuff like that, obviously getting Hendon Hooker in, and they already had Harrison Bailey, and I remember thinking, is this right? Because I think Harrison Bailey's going to take this job and kind of run with it. And then they get Joe Milton, and then Joe Milton ends up being the starter. And I just remember thinking, did Hooker kind of waste his transfer? Because he could have stayed at Virginia Tech, or he could have gone somewhere else that was devoid of a starter. And all of a sudden he's going to be sitting here backing up Joe Milton. Obviously that didn't last long, and he ends up being the starter. But this is a very fun offense, like we've said multiple times. But I think that, we talk a lot about, Dan Mullen and guys like that do more with less talent. I think that Heupel's offense can do that, but I think that it's almost like he's gotten there and he's like, I've been used to being at these smaller schools that don't have anything. So I've got guys who can run here at Tennessee. Even the guys that were recruited as 3-stars, they would have been the best player on a UCF team or another team that he may have coached. And so it's like he's getting his hands on some of these athletes that he didn't have access to before. And you're just seeing the results of that. Yeah, they're going to need to get some better, some more defensive players, some more defensive talent to develop. That part's an area where they can grow as a program. Obviously as a whole, this week they actually came out with they are not going to self-impose a bowl ban, which we'll see if the NCAA is going to agree with them. Obviously, they're going to do their own investigation with all the stuff. I think you agree it was probably mostly a contract ploy with trying to avoid paying Jeremy Pruitt all that money, with showing that you fired him with cause. So if they're not going to self-impose a ban, I think that they are confident that whatever it is, it might just be like a small reduction in scholarships or recruiting hours or something that's not going to overall cripple this program for a long period of time. And that's good news for Tennessee. That's something where they can build off of this already great start to this season, because it's exceeded expectations. I know it's exceeded mine. I'm sure it's exceeded yours. We came in very low on Tennessee, thinking they were going to be the last team in the SEC East, I believe, or second to last team. We had them low. We had them losing to Vanderbilt.
We had them last in the East. They're not going to lose to Vanderbilt.
So no. They're going to blast Vanderbilt. So, and they're going to give Georgia one of the best games I think that Georgia's had, as far as the defense facing that offense. I just think that, I told you off air, I think that this might be the first time that someone scores 14 points against Georgia. I know that sounds silly because it's kind of like,
but no one's done it.
No one's done it. The highest 13 points. I think Tennessee has the opportunity to get in the end zone 2 times against Georgia, which is not nothing. That is something. So
can they get to 20? Can they get to 20 against Georgia?
The thing is, Jacob,
I think they can.
I think they could. I don't know if anyone will. I don't know if anyone will. And that's scary to think about.
2021, that's scary.
Yeah. So that's a whole different animal, but you can't sell short the job that Heupel and them have done. And we take into account how late in the process it was when he became the head coach. Where it was different from, because it was right around spring break. Am I correct? Wasn't it?
It wasn't that late, but it was after the early signing period.
Or after the National Signing Day.
I want to look it up.
It was after National Signing Day, because I felt like it was later than when Mel Tucker took over Michigan State, because they fired athletic director and
January 27th. It was before National Signing Day.
Okay.
But it was after that early signing period, which is still not great for a
recruiting class or anything like that. So yeah, just getting a later start than all the other head coaches that have been hired. So it was similar to that Mel Tucker time, because that was
still only a week before National Signing Day at that point.
Yeah,
because it's that first week of February. Well, I mean, speaking of Georgia, the college football playoff rankings are going to come out Tuesday night, and let's try to project these, right? Daniel, why don't you give me what you think it's going to be, and then what you think they're going to put it as,
right,
on Tuesday, and then what you think it should be. Like, what would be your top 4 if you had to pick it today?
I don't want to be tasked with doing it, but Georgia is number 1. Other than that, it gets hairy, but I think so based on what I think they're going to do, I think they're still going to keep Alabama at number 2 because they won. And I think that they'll drop Michigan State down, obviously. I think that Oklahoma is going to come in at number 3. They were off, so they looked impressive by being off. And then I think Oregon is going to be 4. I think that's what they're going to do. I think they'll still keep Oregon ahead of Ohio State. Obviously, Ohio State didn't wow anybody with their win at Nebraska, or against Nebraska, but and Oregon having the head-to-head, I think they're going to keep holding that one to a high standard until Oregon has a second loss. But yeah, I don't know going forward how long Oregon's going to stay. For me,
season's over today. Like, you're picking a playoff.
I'm not impressed with Oregon. I think that Ohio State will make the playoff.
But let's not project though. Like, if the season ended today, the results are as they stand. Everyone had a 9-game season. What 4 teams are you picking?
Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma, and Ohio State.
They played head to head. Oh, we've argued this a lot off air. Oh, Daniel. All right. That's a fine projection. That's what I think it's going to be at the end of the season still. I think we're going to have all this parity, and then it's going to be like Oh yeah, it's still Georgia, Bama, Ohio State, and Oklahoma. Just like everyone thought it would be initially. So
Well, here's the
I
thing, though. If we're projecting, everyone who puts Georgia and Alabama in the championship in the thing together, are they predicting that Georgia is going to beat Alabama in the SEC championship? Because I don't think that gets talked about enough. Bama already has a loss. If Georgia were to beat Alabama in the SEC championship, does that kick them out? Because the only way I think that Georgia and Alabama are in is if Alabama beats Georgia in the SEC championship.
so I think that for Bama to still get in and lose the SEC championship, number one, like the fact that they're already at 2 helps their case. In that if they lose from 2, it's not like they're at 4 and they lose and get dropped out. They're already at 2. All right. I think Cincinnati would have to have a loss for sure. They're not getting in over a 2-loss Alabama is not getting in over an undefeated Cincinnati. It's
That's
not
a PR
happening.
nightmare.
You can say
Yeah.
the committee's agenda all you want. It's not going to happen. I think that Oregon would because you're going to look at a 0-1 loss Big 12 champion, probably Oklahoma. Georgia's undefeated. Both those teams are in. A 1-loss Big 10 champ is in. And then, so you're basically rooting for Oregon or Ohio State to lose a game, and probably Oregon. And then I do think, I think Alabama could. Some stuff would have to fall their way.
Two-loss team to make it.
Yeah, but then it's like, is Notre Dame 11-1? But I still think, again, because of where they've already put them so far at 2, it's going to take a lot for them to drop. And if you lose to Georgia, like on last second field goal or something like that, like, what are you going to say? Like, you lost the number 1 team in the country by a field goal, and now you're not one of the 4 best teams. I don't know.
It might be counted as a win for them if they play close to Georgia the way everybody else has played this year.
Right. Exactly. So we have a lot to get there. I'll say I think everyone just moves up. I'll be shocked if Oklahoma jumps from 8 to 3 this week. I think everyone just moves up 1. So I think it's Georgia, Alabama, Oregon, Ohio State in the top 4. And then Cincinnati right there at 5. I don't know. Do they drop Michigan State right in front of Cincinnati? Here's the hilarious thing this week. And like, this was one of these weeks where it's like, hey, you can rank pretty much any order 2 through 8. And like, I'll hear an argument for it where it's like, okay, like, sure. Like, I don't know. Like any version of Bama, Oklahoma, Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan, and Cincinnati, just like put them in a cup and like shake it up and pour it out, whatever order it lands in. Sure. Like whatever. And then it's already like this. And yesterday, Oklahoma's off. All these other teams have games. And it's like, hey, someone take this by the throat and prove to us that you're number 2 or a top 4 team. And everyone's like, no, not us, you. And everyone's like, no, you be a top 4 team. And no, you be a top 4 team. And like Cincinnati almost loses to Tulsa. Probably should have lost. Honestly, Michigan looked really good. The only thing holding them back is they lost to Michigan State. So they're going to be behind Michigan State. Ohio State scored 26 against Nebraska. They tried to give that game away. Oregon tried to give the game to Washington. If Washington had been coached a little bit better, Washington could have won that game. Oklahoma's idle. Bama, 20-14 against LSU. So, and then, of course, Georgia, 43-6, just doing what they should. So, Michigan and Georgia do what they're supposed to. Michigan has something holding them back. Georgia's undefeated. Like, Cincinnati had a great chance yesterday to, validate all their complaints about being left out by destroying a 3-win Tulsa team. And they didn't. Bama had a chance to prove everyone right. They're the number 2 team in the country. They barely beat LSU. LSU had the ball with a chance to go drive and win the 4th quarter. Like, twice. And so Georgia's number 1. If it's my top 4, I'm going Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma, Oregon. And then my 5 and 6 is Ohio State and Michigan State. I'll be honest, I have Cincinnati behind even Michigan. I just don't think they're even as good as Michigan. So I have Cincinnati at 8.
I'm really excited to watch Ohio State, Michigan State play.
Yeah, I get the round robin.
Like they finally get, because I'm not convinced. There's games where I watch this Ohio State team and I think, oh, okay, they're great. And then there's other games where I watch and I'm like, they're just not as good as Ohio State normally is. That's the standard we're measuring against. It's the same why people are calling
like
Alabama.
Yep.
It's like, well, you're grading them against how they normally are, which is dominant. And
it's not fair, but it is what it is.
It is what it is. So Ohio State not being quite that flair that they normally are, and Michigan seeming like they're being a tick above what they normally are. Okay, like what does that look like on the field? And I'm just, that's a game, Jacob, that I am just looking forward to more than I normally ever am. Because normally it's like, oh, Michigan, that's just the team that Ohio State beats at the end of November. But this year, that's going to be one that I think they're going to go blow for blow. I think that obviously coaching edge and talent edge is still on Ohio State's side. But, I mean, the way the season has gone, it would not surprise me if Michigan pulls the upset this year.
This has 2018 written all over it.
Well, yeah, so we're expecting all of this, and then Ohio State gains 62
60.
on them. Yeah.
You know who Michigan plays this week, though? Penn State in Happy Valley.
Perfect.
Ooh. Oh, yeah. That's going to be a good game. So, look, the Tuesday's rankings matter? Of course not. The rankings on December 6th are going to matter.
The AP poll. All right.
They do matter more than the AP poll. So, it's fun to talk about. It is fun. This is part of why a 14 playoff works is you get media coverage for 4 weeks with rankings, and everyone argues and is mad about it. So,
like no one's happy.
It's exactly what they want. They want you mad and talking about it. That's why maybe the worldwide leader shouldn't own the playoff. Oh goodness. Anyway, so we'll have to see what happens Tuesday night, but be on the lookout for an episode soon. Again, that advanced stats deep dive. If you ever wondered some of the stats we reference, such as EPA, we have an awesome episode with Parker at StatsOwar on Twitter, where he breaks down some of these advanced metrics and how they're used in college football. So be on the lookout for that. And we're also going to drop our XPR, which I think is better than the college football playoff rankings. And we'll drop that Tuesday before the rankings come out. So be sure to follow us on social media at the Extra Point Pod. Be on the lookout for that as well. You can follow him on Twitter at Deep South Daniel. You can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Carnes with a K. And that will do it for this edition of the Extra Point. He is Daniel. I am Jacob. See ya.